File type specification. So as I mentioned, how the file is going to be utilized, there are 6 different ways in which the file is utilized. So now we will see each of them. R, when you give R as a file type, it indicates that it's opening an already existing file. This is very important. You cannot read a file which is null or which is empty. It is going to waste your time. So before you open a file, you have to know whether it is having some contents. So it opens only an existing file for reading. If the file does not exist, then it will return an error. W opens a new file for writing. So here again, this has to be a new file. When you want to write something, it has to be a new file. If a file with the same name exists, that file will be destroyed and a new file in its place will be created. So this is another point the programmer has to keep in mind. If he is going to give the same file name to a file to be written, then if any file is existing in that same name, it will be destroyed even without his knowledge. So you have to make sure that when you are giving a file name, that previous files don't exist in that name. In case they exist, then you have to make sure that they are not needed any longer because they will be destroyed. So when you are opening a file for writing, you have to be sure of these two things. Next is A. It opens an existing file for appending. Appending is nothing but adding contents to the end of the file. If the file does not exist here, again a new file is created in its place. R plus. It opens an existing file for both reading as well as writing. W plus opens a new file for both reading as well as writing. If a file with the same name exists, it will be destroyed and a new file will be created in its place. So that is the difference between R plus and W plus. In R plus, there has to be an existing file. You cannot open a new file. You cannot create a new file and open it for reading and writing. Whereas in W plus, you can open a new file for reading and writing, and if the file exists with the same name, it will be destroyed. So that is the difference between both. Though the operations are the same, the manner in which the compiler interprets it are different. Then you have A plus is nothing but for appending. So it follows the same rules that we follow for A. You can append the file, you can write into the file, and you can read the file as well. Here again, if a file with the same name exists, it will be destroyed and a new file will be created in its place. And these are the two library functions, fopen and fclose, for opening and closing files. Fopen is nothing but this function returns a pointer to the beginning of the buffer area associated with the file. So we associate a file name with the buffer area, and when we want to read or write or do some operation, you have to point to the beginning of the buffer area, because you have to either read from the beginning, isn't it? And if you have to write also, you have to write from the beginning. Only for appending, you have to go to the end of the file. A null value is returned if the file cannot be opened. Either it does not exist or there is some problem, it is locked by some user, you cannot open it at the time for reading or writing, or some other person is using the same file for writing also, you cannot open it. So these are, in such cases, a null value is returned. For fclose, a data file must be closed at the end of the program. Once all the operations on files are closed, you can either individually close each file or you can give fclose all, which will close all the files that are currently open for the particular program. So fclose ptvar, which indicates the pointer variable associated with the file name. So these are the syntax to be followed while processing files. So this is an example of how files are used in C. You have the header file, you have null, you are defining the value for null. It is sometimes not necessary because null is already defined in C. You have the main function, here you have the file star fp. So here you have to keep in mind this program will lead to an error, the reason being file is in small case. File should always be in capital letters, only that is the way it is defined in stdio.h file. So here you have to make sure that file should be in caps. Then you are going to open the file the same way. fp is the pointer variable, fopen is the library function, test.dat is the name of the file, r plus is the mode, which indicates that the file is to be opened for reading as well as for writing, and the file should exist. If fp is equal to null, that means if the file does not exist, it gives an error to open the file. Otherwise, it does whatever has to be done, either you can read from it or you can write from it or do whatever you want. And then you have to close the file using the pointer variable fp. So this is only a skeleton of the program of how you normally open and close files.